Hey friends, welcome back to another video. This one we're going to be talking about 10 more Switch shoot 'em ups. Third episode. Let's go. Like all the other videos, in this one we're going to be putting the ESRB rating up in this corner here somewhere, or the PEGI rating, or the Zero rating, depending on if the game is an import or not. So this way you know what you're getting into if you decide to purchase the game. And the first one we're going to get into is called the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection that has a ton of shmups on here. So we're going to get into it. First and foremost, there are so many shmups on here, I'm going to breeze through them fairly quickly, but you'll get the gist of it. You have Alpha Mission, Bermuda Triangle, Chopper, Ikari Warriors, Ikari Warriors 2, Victory Road, Ikari 3, Iron Tank, Prehistoric Isle, Sasuke vs. Commander, Tank 3, Vanguard, and World Wars. They aren't all great. It's because of their age and the original hardware that they were on. But in this compilation, it is very solid. And if you need a little bit of shmup nostalgia or see where things came from as far as history goes, this might be your fix. If you've never played any of these games, you probably aren't missing a ton. However, if you have played these in the past, they might hold a place near and dear to your heart. I'm sure some will disagree with this statement. However, I never played them as any of these growing up. So there's maybe 2 or 3 that I would really recommend on here. But you're getting so many different ones in this compilation. Again, I would recommend it if you can pick this game up for cheap. Next game we're going to talk about is called Riddled Corpses EX. And don't be scared off by this cover. Riddled Corpses EX is a retro-style twin-stick shooter that, if your experience was like mine, you're going to die in a lot. And that's okay, because each time you die, you build on the previous run. Heading into the story mode, initially you're only going to be able to play as John until you purchase other characters. Before you do that, you're going to want to upgrade John a bit to at least deal more damage as you trudge through the different levels. Like I said, get comfortable with dying. However, as you die, you'll then upgrade your character's level each time. The upgrades, however, only seem to be in damage output, so there's no health bonuses or anything else going on here. As you play, you're going to have to find the balance between shooting at a distance and being close enough to scoop up the gold that the bad guys drop. On the upgrade screen, you'll be able to upgrade your characters as well as purchase other characters, some of whom will take a little bit to unlock, that's for sure. With the gold you get from each pass, you'll purchase upgrades that'll help you dole out more damage and hopefully help you get a little bit further each pass you play through. The controls in the game work well, but it's not full analog. When I say that, you can shoot straight up and to the side, but it's not a full 360 degrees. There's only certain angles that you can shoot bad guys at. It's not game-breaking, but I just figured I would mention it here. The other thing is the loading times on this game are very snappy as well, so there's no waiting around. The story mode is fun, and it reminds me of the RPGs of the NES days regarding the character styling as well as the text coming across the screen in their chat bubbles. When you get past a given stage, the game then gives you the option to start after that stage, so you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning. The music is alright, but it does tend to just kind of fade into the background behind the sound effects of the demonic zombie horde coming after you. The classic soundtrack definitely reminds me of the original Contra on the NES. As for the arcade mode, there's not a lot to talk about here other than it's a single pass that throws weapon upgrades at you as you stay alive longer. When you die, your run is done. There's more knickknacks to pick up, which will help boost your score in this mode as well. And survival mode is just that. Good luck surviving. It's a fun twin-stick shooter, which, if it's in your budget, I would definitely recommend picking up. Next game on this list that we're going to talk about is called Hellmutt. Okay, so Hellmutt is the badass from Hell. It says so right here on the cover. See? So this game's got to be great, right? In this retro-style twin-stick shooter, the levels are randomly generated as you play through, so no two runs are going to be the same. Instantly, this game reminds me of Enter the Gungeon, but that game is more delineated with the doors that go from room to room. This one gives you more room to work with, so you can backtrack into previous rooms if you need to fall back and set up a shot a little bit easier. I was a bit surprised, based on the name of the game, Hellmutt, that the character on the cover isn't actually a dog, it's a rat, and you can play as either the rat or a giant stitched together monster. As for options, there are precious few here, and difficulty is not among them. The game is just hard, and you have to get good to progress through. As for sound options, there are a few that you can play with, and they're pretty interesting to flip through. The Gauntlet mode is you versus countless waves of hellish pixelated undead and demonic goons that want to destroy your pillar of green goo, which you must diligently protect. It's another mode to the game, which is a nice addition. If you're looking to buy this game, keep in mind that there's no leveling or health at all. You can just take a few hits, and that's about it. When your character dies, you revert back to the floating brain that you started as. The game is fun and definitely has a good bit of character to it regarding the different enemies as well as the destructible items in the room, which you should definitely be taking advantage of and destroying them, as coins are hidden inside a lot of them. I would definitely recommend this if you're looking to get a roguelike shoot 'em up. Now we're going to talk about a game called Galak-Z The Void. Galak-Z is another twin-stick shooter that reminds me a little bit of Asteroids in the gameplay. The game has 3 different options when you get into it. The graphics look similar to a Flash game for those that remember what those were. The background music is alright, but it's nothing overly fancy to comment about. After the second mission, you pick up a merchant named Crash, so when you're back at the mothership, you can do some upgrades finally. During the missions, you have a mini-map that you can reference to see where you need to fly in and out of the giant space rock to rescue or salvage the data, or whomever or whatever you're trying to do with a task at hand. The loading times to get into the missions aren't too horrible either, and there's at least something entertaining to read while the levels are being built. The style of the characters reminds me a little bit of Macross back in the day. Overall, it's a decent little twin-stick shooter. The shields regenerate as you play through as well, so if you do take some damage, you just fly off and let your shields rebuild and you'll be okay. I would recommend picking it up. The next game we're going to talk about is called Sisters Royale, and this is an interesting shoot 'em up, I guess. Firstly, as for options, you've got Tate mode, which is great for play on the go. As for language, you have 6 different options here too. Under Maniac options, you can actually change the size of the bullets, which is an interesting take on making the gameplay more difficult. There is also a quick tutorial to cover the gameplay mechanics as well if you need it. Once you start the game, you're treated to a bit of a story about squabbling sisters. Then you select one of the 6 sisters. Okay. Then you're given the opportunity of a difficulty setting of easy, normal, or hard. The premise of the game is that you're fighting your sisters for the love of some dude. Okay, well, new plot for a shmup that I've not seen previously. The characters on the screen are all kind of chibi styled, the cute, pudgy characters, but the artwork that they show when they're talking to each other is a bit more mature. During gameplay, you can shoot magic yourself or hold down the B button to have your little magical helper do all the heavy lifting for you. I did notice something on the Frozen stage was that the controls felt a bit floaty, and then I realized that my character was actually walking on ice. The mechanics work so that if you're closer to the enemy's bullets, you'll actually do more damage, and that includes your little magical friend too. And it actually changes your shots up as well. So, interesting little tweak on the gameplay. One thing to note, the loading times here are very quick, which is great. The music gets a little repetitive at times during the menus, but it's alright in all the gameplay stages. The overly cutesy, fighting off your siblings for someone's love isn't a great premise. I know, there's a lot more games that have far worse premises than this, but it just kinda, I don't know. If you can get past all the cutesy lovey stuff, or if that's something you're into, this might be the game for you. Now we're going to talk about a game called Ikaruga. I've gone over Ikaruga in the past for the PS4, but I did want to do a fresh playthrough on here as well, just to do it with a little bit more fresh eyes. There is a 2-player option here as well if you got somebody else into the puzzling shoot 'em up which this game is. One thing I don't get is why they made the menus all so tiny. Even on these large TVs, they're tiny as hell, and in handheld mode too. I just don't get it. When you fire up the game, you'll be presented with the difficulty options of easy, normal, or hard. Also, if you need, you can actually give yourself some additional lives here through the settings menu, which will definitely help as you play through. Something else to consider is that by default, you're not going to get continues in this game. This is an option you can change as well. It can be set to a specific number of continues or just set to free play. Once you start, you select the arcade mode, prototype, or a specific chapter that you just want to play through. The mechanics of the game are based off a light and dark polarity. So when you're in the dark mode, only the light bullets can damage you, and vice versa when you're in the light mode. The background music goes well with the pacing of the game, and the graphics are stunning. This game is not easy by any means. However, if it wasn't a phenomenal game, it wouldn't be on all the different systems that it is. I would definitely recommend this game for those that have the constitution to fight through the agony that which some of these bosses and levels present to you. Next game we're going to talk about is called Skyforce. The interesting thing about Skyforce is that each level has 4 different objectives to meet, and then when you complete those 4 objectives, you get 4 more objectives. And when you complete those, you get 4 more, and you do this 4 times. So there's actually 4 different difficulty levels with 4 objectives for each of the difficulties. It's a pretty cool way that the game builds on itself for each of the stages. There is no alternate gameplay here. It's just playing through the story mode normal. The overworld map is really linear, but you can go back and backtrack and play other levels that you want to redo. And this is how you get all the objectives. You don't have to do all the objectives in one go. You can get 1 or 2 objectives in one pass, and then on the next pass, try and get another. And then doing this, you'll actually get cash, and then you can upgrade your plane by doing more damage and things like that. It's definitely a fun little shmup. The game's pace does move a little bit more slowly. The frequency of the enemies does pick up as you go along, but the flight speed is kind of slow overall. The in-game currency are these stars, so when you get enough you can purchase an upgrade at your hangar, which you're going to be in your hangar buying upgrades quite a bit. And the game can be a little grindy at times, but you definitely get to learn the levels as you're playing through them. The game doesn't just open the map for you and let you play any level. You actually have to beat the previous level in order to play the next one. So there is a little bit of sequentiality in this. The game is definitely a good time, and I would recommend this. It's a good maybe starter shmup for somebody. Now we're going to talk about a game called Clover World Explosion. Great game. Also has 2-player option as well, so you can bring a friend. Digging into the settings option, there's a lot you can change up if you want to. Firstly, you can run the game in Tate mode, which is great on the Switch. You can also run the game in 10 different languages, which is helpful for those that need it. Under the training menu, you can dig into a very specific area of the game that you may be having trouble with, and can play it from that specific point with a given difficulty, lives remaining, and other settings that you may come under. When you start the game, you're presented with 3 options: Novice, Arcade, and Arranged mode. Once selected, you also have the choice of gameplay mode of Original, Boost, Unlimited, or Time Attack. Then the selection of your ship, and the ship's color as well. The 3 ships do vary a bit, as you can see by the speed and the width meters. Keep in mind that the Unlimited and Time Attack modes aren't available in the Novice mode either. When you do get into the game, you're going to be given the option for the tutorial about the boost mode, double boost, and bombs that help you lay waste to the bad guys, which is great. The Novice mode definitely gives you a lot of leeway as far as easing you into the game. There's not much concern for getting killed here. The arcade selection definitely ratchets up the difficulty over Novice. If I could add one more aspect of this game, it would have been to have a few more difficulty levels in the mix, because the Novice to the arcade mode is a fairly steep jump. The soundtrack definitely has an 80s synth vibe to it, and it goes well with the gameplay, though there are some points in the game where it has a heavier rock sound to it. Then, at others, it's more techno. It's kind of all over the place as far as music goes, but it definitely helps keep the pace of the game fast. The graphics are colorful and bright, making the shots coming at you that much easier to see. There are a few points where you can see a little bit of a parallax scrolling happening, but it's hard to see with all the bullets flying around on the screen at times. One of the other things is, under the arcade options, you can actually save your game run as well to play back later. Crimzon Clover is definitely a great shmup addition to the Switch. However, I just wish that somebody would pick this game up and do a physical release of it. Other than that, I would very highly recommend getting this game. The next game on this list is called Blackbird, and this is a very interesting shmup. Blackbird is a retro-style shoot-'em-up that leans very heavily on the sepia filter. Sepia, one of the two. Brown filter. Heading to the options, you've got 6 different languages to choose from if needed. There is a leaderboard that you will participate in if you're connected to the internet. Not sure if this is a daily, weekly, monthly, or however frequently leaderboard, so keep that in mind when you're viewing your rank. The gameplay is alright. You're the Blackbird and you're killing stuff. It's definitely unique in the game style of the enemies in the backgrounds. One item that you want to keep an eye out for are these little cauldrons. They will increase your speed or give you an extra bomb or life. It really helps. I'm not really all that sure of the story going on here, if you're the girl or the bud that eats the girl, or both, or some existential commentary on the trappings of technology. I'm not sure. When you beat the game, which isn't all that long or hard to do, a true mode opens up, and this one is much more difficult. Painfully so. It's a bit short in the regular mode. However, if the gameplay you're seeing looks like fun, then I would definitely recommend it. However, it is a bit on the short side. But there seems to be a little bit more to unpack with the true mode as well. Last game on the list is called Enter the Gungeon. And this is a very fun twin-stick shoot-'em-up that has a lot of character to it. Under the options, there are 11 languages to choose from if needed. There is no difficulty here other than the default setting. There's quite a few other options that can be tweaked if needed. However, nothing really jumps out as out of the ordinary. When you first fire up the game, you will have to go through the tutorial to get started. After that, it doesn't hold your hand at all. There is also a 2-player mode to this game as well, so if you have a friend come by, you can play this with them. You have your selection of 4 different characters: the Marine, the Hunter, the Convict, or the Pilot. Each of them has their own weapons to start, and I would definitely recommend trying all of them to see which one suits your flavor. Once you've selected your character, go ahead and wander into the Gungeon. It's a dungeon filled with guns. All the bad guys are either bullets or shotgun shells or ghosts, blobs of goo. It's all related to guns somehow. One thing to keep in mind is to use the room's layout to your advantage. If there's pillars, use them to block incoming shots. You can flip tables over and use them for cover as well. It definitely helps. The levels are randomly generated, so each time you play through, it's actually a new experience. Same goes for the chest drops as well. You never know what you're going to get until you open it. Once you wander around a bit, you'll eventually find a boss room, which, after you defeat them, you move on to the next floor. There are teleports, so you can very quickly backtrack or move around through the level as you need to. When you die, you just restart at the central hub again. You select a character and off you go. The music fits well with the game, and it's not overly fast. The levels you can take as quickly or as slowly as you'd like. When you walk into the room full of baddies, you'll start to recognize what guys do what and which ones to take out first. Overall, Enter the Gungeon is a very fun twin-stick style shoot-'em-up. The procedurally generated levels definitely adds to the replayability of it. So it's very fun. But there's no leveling, there's no increasing health or any of that. When you're done, you just go back to the hub and you start over. Alright friends, so there you go. 10 more shoot-'em-ups for the Switch. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please give us that like, subscribe for when we release our videos, and other than that, have a good one. Be good to each other. Thanks for watching. Now we're going to talk about a game.